So I got an article sent to me from Comic Book Review, and I know normally these articles are really, really cringeworthy, but this one honestly isn't that bad. His points are pretty solid. However, he doesn't really answer the actual question that he poses, which is, what is the real reason that Guts' parents never appear in the story? Obviously, I'm only assuming you're watching this video if you already have read Berserk or know a lot about it, so I'm going to be spoiling things and also talking pretty deeply about the series. But a lot of people tend to want Guts, mostly, I think, because of how they're used to narratives going in other stories. Usually lineage is a big thing, or where characters come from, or who their fathers are, which he mentions in this article, by the way, that usually plays a big role in the story itself, this sort of idea of lineage and passing the torch and all of these sort of themes and ideas, which are really powerful themes, but not really what Berserk is about. There's also the notion that Guts is so ridiculously strong that some people feel like he has to be something other than human, or he has to be something special, or he has to be this person that's going to set fate on a different course and whatnot. And all of this sort of takes away from what makes Berserk so special as a series and what makes Guts so special as a series. But I'm going to get into this article a little bit for you guys and sort of read what he wrote, and then I'm going to give you guys sort of the breakdown as to why I believe, personally, that Guts' parents in the story obviously are never brought up in the story. They're never mentioned in the story because they simply do not matter to the story whatsoever, and they don't matter for Guts' character. And if you want to say that they matter in the sense that they are absent, because that sort of leads into the point that Guts is sort of this lonely struggler coming from nowhere, coming from nothing, and somebody that, for all intents and purposes, should be dead. And I've heard so many ridiculous explanations as to Guts's an example for Guts' strength over the years, as far as like, oh, Zod is actually his father, or that he's part demon, part apostle, and whatnot. Like, just pump the brakes on that for a moment. Just pump the brakes. But first, let's see what this article has to offer, and let's see what he says, and then we'll get right into it. So this is by Lewis Kemner. Got nothing against Lewis Kemner whatsoever. I have no idea who he is, but just going to comment on your article here. So Berserk, he says, stands as an essential seinen title, yada yada. It's a dark fantasy. This is usually what they do on the comic book review. They usually spend their first paragraph or so basically just giving a summary of the story. But then he goes on to say, many shonen and seinen protagonists are missing one or both of their parents. They're an orphan who have never met their father. Guts, meanwhile, was an orphan from the moment he was born. Never once did his parents hold him in his arms, yada yada. And yeah, so that's all true. So nothing particularly wrong there, but that's like half his article already, and he hasn't really explained why Guts' parents are not in the story. He goes on to say that Guts was found under the tree from the hanged corpse of his mother. That's true. And who had given birth to him in her dying moments. That's true. He would have died in a matter of days if it not were for the mercenary commander Gambino, who found him, and the young lady in his group quickly adopted his infant and had Guts as her surrogate son, including breastfeeding him. I mean, yeah, that's true. Her name is Shisu, by the way. But yeah, you're right. Gambino kind of just wanted to let him rot and die. So, but he gets to the point that Gambino was a horrible, abusive person here in a moment. In that, yeah, after his adoptive mother died, that Gambino blamed Guts for all of that. At the same time, Gambino started training Guts in the ways of swordplay. And then he goes on to say, similar to Askeladd teaching Thorfinn in Vinland Saga, which he says is a similar seinen series. For that, I mean, Berserk predates Vinland Saga by just about 2 decades, I believe. So comparing it to Vinland Saga, not really. I mean, if anything, Vinland Saga would be compared to Berserk. I love Vinland Saga, by the way. I'm a huge proclaimer of the Vinland Saga amazingness, which you definitely should be reading, or at least watch season 1 of the anime. But I wouldn't go so far as to compare Vinland Saga to Berserk. But I mean, I understand the comparison, and if you're trying to use something that's more like in recent memory, Vinland Saga would be more in people's heads, perhaps, to kind of like draw a comparison to that. So yes, both Thorfinn and Guts were practically raised within a mercenary group that were not their parents. This is correct, but their goals were completely different. Whereas Thorfinn adamantly planned to murder Askeladd at some point in order to get vengeance for his father. He wanted a man-to-man true fight between them, an agreed fight, a duel, a proper duel to reclaim the honor that he saw lost from his father upon his death. to get that vengeance. So his story was about vengeance towards Askeladd. If you're comparing Guts' relationship to Gambino, Guts looked up to Gambino like a father figure. Despite his abusive nature, Gambino did teach Guts a lot of useful things, and Gambino was the only prime masculine force that Guts really had in his life to attach himself to. So Guts did everything he could to not want to believe that Gambino hated him. It wasn't until really his last moments where Gambino admitted everything. There's obviously the famous Donovan moment within the story. Guts didn't want to believe that Donovan was telling the truth. He didn't want to believe that Gambino sold him out. He believed that Donovan was lying. He's just like, you're full of shit. He's just a horrible person. Donovan is a horrible person, but you know what I'm saying? So Guts had a lot more of what you would say is Stockholm Syndrome than Thorfinn did, because Thorfinn always wanted his vengeance against Askeladd and was always looking for it and was always doing his task specifically to get that duel eventually. Guts didn't want to hurt Gambino. Guts didn't want to kill Gambino. It was basically an accident that it happened. So there's a lot of differences there, but I see where you're going with it. Other than that, he says Guts and Gambino were never close. Guts did owe Gambino for raising him until Guts was assaulted in his tent and later rejected by Gambino's mercenary gang. Guts cut and run, and then he lacked a parental figure since then. That's true. He looked up to the charismatic Griffith as his new commander and mentor and accepted the rest of the Hawk soldiers as allies like a new family. It's true. And then here he goes on to say, Guts grew up without knowing anyone from his real family, and it's clear that he never actually missed them. True. Rarely, if ever, does Guts give any thought to who his parents or family were, even of where he came from. I'm pretty sure never. I'm pretty sure it's safe to say he never brings this up ever in the story. In fact, the story itself never brings this up. It is pretty much a foregone conclusion that Gambino is Guts' father. Not his biological father, obviously, but for all intents and purposes within the story, when Guts thinks about his father, he's thinking about Gambino. The stark contrast to medieval-style heroes who take great pride in their lineage. Many fictional characters proudly introduce themselves as X, son of Y, such as Askeladd, again, comparing it to Vinland Saga. Guts is the son of no one, and that significant insight into his self-image. He defines himself by his actions and his goals, not by his lineage or ethnic background. He could be the son of a wealthy aristocrat and not even know it or care. Well, that's just the thing, that Guts doesn't care. Because to Guts, his parents were Gambino and Shisu. That's who he saw as his mom, and that's who he saw as his father or father figure. Look, Berserk takes place in a world where death and destruction is rampant, and that's before the demonic things show up. We live in a world where people are constantly at war, people are being killed for heresy, people are being attacked by bandits, people are being attacked here and there from different things. The nobles live in luxury, the peasants live in absolute horror and poverty, and the plague is happening. There are so many horrible things happening in Berserk that death is just one of those normal, natural things. So what you're trying to do is survive as long as possible within this crazy, chaotic world, and then it becomes like a metaphor for our real life and whatnot, but that's a whole other story. And Guts, that's how he defined himself. He just lived to fight in order to live. So when he joined the Band of the Hawk, that was his sort of moment where he didn't feel equal to Griffiths, because he didn't have this overall goal. He didn't have this overall purpose. He was just literally, his entire life was just this struggle for survival. And he never really thought about anything else because there wasn't time to think about anything else. He killed Gambino, I think, at age 11, and then was on his own until age 15, probably, here and there joining a little bit of different groups for a mission and then, wandering off. So he never had the time to think about it. And when he did think about it, he thought of Gambino as his father. Anyway, so let's finish this up real quick. Guts ignores the intriguing question of his heritage because he believes he doesn't owe his parents anything. Clearly, he's justified of thinking that way. Guts is a self-made hero who pushed himself in his boyhood to keep up with Gambino's mercenary army. He also saw himself as Griffith's friend, not son, especially since they are a similar age. That's a weird sentence. He saw himself as Griffith's friend, not Griffith's son. I don't know. No. I mean, I have compared Griffith's love for Guts similar to how a parents would view love for a child, wanting to protect them and help them grow and make them be the best version of themselves, but not a literal son-father dynamic, that comes later with the Moonlight Boy. But we're not even going to get into that. Anyways, he's not relying on the power of friendship, yada yada. Guts doesn't know or care what kind of life his parents would have made for him if he had a regular family life. All he knows, he could have been a baker's son, yada yada. So basically saying the same thing he said before. Guts relied on just one person for survival, and he lost everyone in his life more than once, from Gambino's battalion to the Band of the Hawk. Survived despite those losses. Guts' indifference to his lineage and family simply echoes the theme. So basically what you're saying in this article is that the real reason why Guts' parents never appear in the story is because Guts doesn't care. It seems to be like that's kind of what it's going towards. But I would expand that definition a little bit more. I would say Guts' parents never appear in the story because the point of Guts himself, this struggling character, is this character that basically should not exist, a character that should have died. He should have died as a baby underneath his mother's corpse, but he was saved. He should have died when he was shot with that arrow when he was a kid and the wolves were surrounding him. They would have eaten him, but he decided there was something in him that decided to make him stand up and to make him fight back, despite the fact that he probably would have been better off if he had just died. The moment, trying to survive the eclipse itself, you're surrounded by thousands of demonic beings. Everyone you know and love is being destroyed, eaten in front of you. He could just accept his fate, but he doesn't. He continues to fight. He continues to fight afterwards. He continues to fight, and all this time he's trying to find meaning, trying to find purpose, whatever. But there's something within him that doesn't allow him to be defined by his life circumstances, or that just accept what fate throws at him and instead work as hard as he can to continue struggling for as long as possible. And that sort of is that indomitable human will within Guts, and also within all of us if we tap into it, that I think the story is really trying to showcase. Yes, Guts is ridiculously strong, but it's not because he has some demon lineage. And I think there are so many stories that have the one, or the special one, or the chosen one, or the prophesized one. Luke Skywalker, Neo, all these different characters. Goku was actually a Saiyan, and the list goes on and on, that the reason why they're the protagonists of the story is because they were some special person destined to do something. But Berserk is the opposite. Berserk is Guts, who is just a man. He is a man who's gone through tremendous amounts of trauma, tremendous amounts of physical and mental abuse, but keeps moving forward. He is the personification of the human spirit, the human will, that drive to keep going, that drive to say, fuck you to fate, that drive to say, I am going to stand up. It would be so much easier for me to just roll over and die and accept this, but I say no. As long as there is blood pumping through my veins, as long as there is air in my lungs, I am going to stand. As long as I can stand, I am going to walk. As long as I can walk, I will try to run. I will swing this sword, and I will continue moving forward. And that's Guts. That is the character of Guts. And that's why his parents don't matter, because it's not about I'm doing this for my parents, or because I was destined to do something, or because I have this special blood in me. No, he's doing it just to do it. And he finds different meanings and purpose, and he finds meanings and purpose within his life by going through experiences just like we all do. It's not, his meaning in life isn't because I'm the chosen one and I have to do this. His meaning in life becomes first, just survival itself. I don't know what else to do. Then his meaning becomes being part of the Band of the Hawk. Then his meaning becomes vengeance. Then his meaning becomes, protecting Casca and making sure she's safe, and his love for her. And so it's this whole journey and experience of his character that's focused purely on him. And his family does not matter. And sure, I feel bad for his mom. She was hung, she was pregnant. That sucks. but now this is going to sound really mean, but she's not important. She's not important to the story at all. Doesn't matter, what she did, why she was hung, doesn't matter. All we need to know is that Guts' parents were Shisu and Gambino, and that Guts is the struggler that we all strive to be and get inspiration from. So that's how I see it. Anyways, what do you guys think? Do you think Guts' parents should matter or shouldn't matter, or have you ever thought about it? Anyways, put all that down below. Let me know what you thought of my thoughts and feelings on it. Also, go check out the article itself and read it for yourself if you want to. And hopefully that expresses my opinion on it. But let me know what you guys think down below as well. Also, like the video and comment on it if you'd like to, because all interaction does help it be seen in the algorithm better. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because once I hit 100K subscribers, I am going to have a gigantic pizza party for all of you guys. You're all invited, and Schnoz may or may not be there. So